All right, welcome to another episode of Immersive Minds presented by Immersal. I'm joined today by Mr. Connell Gauld, who is the CTO of Zappar. How's it going, Connell?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining. So, let me first ask you, when you meet someone new and they ask, what do you do? How do you usually respond?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it does vary a lot. I try and make sure that I keep their attention when I answer it. And so at the very simplest level, I work in mobile phone technology, in particular, computer vision technology, and that's where we teach devices like mobile phones how to see the world around them and to then either report what it sees to the user in an interesting way or to position and present content to a user which interacts with that environment in a way that surprises and delights them.
Okay, can we take a look at a couple of your favorite projects? So I'm looking at Zapvision. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What is Zapvision?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that our technology is particularly good at is very quickly finding things in the world, especially things that might be small or far away. And so, one of our pieces of technology we've developed is software called Zapvision. And the premise is to take product packaging, which, as we all know, has lots of information on it, and make that information more accessible to those that are blind or partially sighted. And the way we do that is we take a QR code and we put a special pattern around the corner of the QR code. We call it a little dot dot dash. And that QR code goes on the product packaging. And if you are a consumer like myself who will buy packaging and can see it, then that QR code, if I scan it, might take me through to just the product's website or advertising or marketing promotion work, etc. However, if you have our Zapvision app installed on your phone, then you get an experience that is tailored to help those that are blind and partially sighted access to specific product information that we all take for granted. So those users can see and detect that code from much further away than a normal QR code scanner could. It can announce the category of that product, and it can then give curated product information to that user, such as allergens, usage instructions, recycling information, etc. All information that is otherwise on the pack, but is otherwise inaccessible to those that can't see and read it.
Wow. So this is widely available right now.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're approaching 1 billion products on which Zapvision is deployed across brands from Unilever, Bayer, Nestle, and others that are coming on board as we go on.
Do you think, in the near future, well, maybe it's not the near future, but sometime in the future when we have wearables, this will explode even more, right? Because now people are having to point their phones at it. Do you think when the headsets come, it's going to take it to another level?
Yes, I think particularly for this community where often hand use is challenging just because they're going to be carrying a cane, as well
Yep.
as if, let's say, they're in a supermarket, they might be carrying a cane, they might have a dog, they might have a basket in the other hand. What hand are you going to use to hold the phone? What hand are you going to use to pick a product up from a shelf, for example, in order to scan it and see what or to get that product information? And so wearables are really interesting for this use case because it enables a form factor that gives the users their hands back. But it is a challenging problem because, as we know, wearables have limited battery life compared to handheld devices because they have to sit on your head and can't be too heavy. And a huge number of the blind and partially sighted community do have some vision, and enough that they don't want to be covering their eyes and their face with something that's going to occlude their vision, because they often use that for navigating their immediate space, even if they can't read the text on the product. So there's a ton of challenges when it comes to wearables, but there's also a ton of opportunity. And so that's why it's important for us at Zappar. We have this technology in a form that we can port and bring, if you like, to these other different devices in a way that's really easy, so that we can leverage our relationships and partners with people that deploy our content, deploy our technology, to bring it to these devices.
Okay, let's move on to the next thing now. Mattercraft.
Mattercraft, there's a few bits of explanatory information that we should give first, which
Okay.
is um, immersive technology like augmented reality and virtual reality have in the past been the realm of native apps. So that means apps that you install on your phone from the App Store or Google
Yes.
Play or these sorts of places. And apps are great in terms of delivering high quality content to your phone that can use all of the hardware features of the phone, etc. But there's a problem with native apps, which is especially important when it comes to short form content. So, content where you expect a user to come into your experience very quickly, have your experience for anything from 30 seconds up to 10 or 15 minutes, and then maybe move on with their lives and do something else. Um, and that problem is that there's a friction with the App Store. So users have to go and install your app if they're going to have your experience. And they've got to go to the App Store, they've got to press the download or install button. They've often got to authenticate at that point. So, like putting in their password or Face ID or these sorts of things. And then there's going to be a little spinner, and people are so used to that spinner taking like 10 or 15 minutes that they'll just go away and do something else. They'll be back to doom scrolling in their social media app of choice whilst they wait for that download to happen. And let's say you are a brand that's delivering a piece of immersive content for your customers. You've lost the user in that flow. You've brought the user. Let's say that it's a brand where it's a bus stop and there's a marketing campaign from the side of the bus stop, from a poster. The user scanned this poster and the brand wants to deliver them this immersive experience through that poster. By the time their app's downloaded, they'll be on the bus and they'll be doom scrolling again. So how do we keep the user engaged throughout a process where you're looking to deliver a creative experience, without them feeling that there's too much friction in that process? And so one of the most important ways of doing that is through the web. So a website and a web page that sits and is served to you through Safari or Google Chrome on your phone. Um, and people are very used to web pages opening very quickly. They don't have to go and press a button for it to download and then come back 10 minutes later. Everything happens very smoothly. And the web browsers on people's mobile phones in the last 4 or 5 years or so have become very capable for delivering richer, more immersive and expressive content. But there's been a missing piece so far, which is creative tooling. So if you're a developer or a brand looking to build content and you want to give it to the user through their web browser rather than a native app, then you're going to need tools to make that content. There's great tools for making that content for native apps, but until now, there hasn't been great tooling for doing that through the web. And so at Zappar, we very much believe in the web, and we think the web is the way forward for this type of content. And we make a ton of this content at Zappar ourselves. And so we built Mattercraft as a creative development environment for rich 3D experiences for the web. And in particular, we focus obviously at Zappar on augmented reality, virtual reality, and immersive types of experience. Um, and so that can be face filters, where you're kind of wearing funny hats and things. It can be through to product visualization, where you want to see how a piece of furniture would look in your living room. It can be through to uh, big entertainment experiences presented in real world physical locations, like with our Immersive integration. And all of these types of content can be built from this single content development platform that really gives developers the tools to make it.
All right, before we finish, I would like to just ask you a little bit about the near future, the coming future. The general question is, as we get more and more immersive with our technologies, what are the cautions that we need to take in terms of human connections? Have you thought about that? And, as we get more into this immersive world, are there any things that you try to remind yourself to keep grounded and keep the humanity?
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the most important things for me with this set of technologies around immersive technology, so augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality, so I suppose headset-based things, uh, then one of the nice opportunities for me is that it does have the potential for having this really nice physical human connection to it. So when you're interacting with these technologies, you're doing so typically in physical space. You're moving around your room or um, you're interacting with the environment that you're in, and you're not just doom scrolling. You're not just captive on a little 2D space that's in front of you on your phone screen. And so as a result, lots of these immersive experiences are social. It is people existing together in
Interesting.
a 3D space, interacting with digital and virtual content. And that's great. It means no longer do we have this separation between digital and virtual content. And that separation in the past has often also been a social separation. Everybody is on their own phone having their
Yes,
own experience when you're looking at, digital content on your phone. Whereas immersive experiences have the opportunity for everybody to be working together in a collaborative space and to be
amazing.
communicating with each other directly in a space. So I think that is one thing that's really nice. Um, there are other things around, we want to encourage people to communicate physically and be in the same room as well as in the same space, which is interesting. I realize I have said that, but without any kind of explanation so far. Um, in mixed reality, you can be in the same digital room as somebody without being in the same physical room as them. So, for example, you and I could each wear a headset, and perhaps we could play a game of chess together where we have a simulated chessboard in front of us, and we're wearing a headset, and I can see an avatar of you in space, and you can see an avatar of me in space. So we're kind of in the same virtual room, but you're in your location and I'm in my location. And that's great. That works. But I think we also want to encourage that we would actually come and sit together in a real room and still play chess, for example, because there's a ton of advantages to that as well. So that's the combination of the opportunity and the threat, if you like, for these technologies. One is that we don't need to meet in person as much because we can have um, richer virtual experiences, which is great, but maybe we miss out on that physical thing. And then the other side of that is no longer are we having um, individual experiences with digital content. We're now having social experiences, even if or not we're in the same physical space.
Yeah, I love it. Totally agree. The way I like to look at it is if, like, when you go to IKEA and you see the buildings boarded up, sorry, like some sections boarded up because they are renovating, right? So, but during that temporary phase when they're boarded up, tell me if you can follow this. But I have a point. During the temporary phase when they're boarded up, it feels like, oh, this is not as nice as it was before. It was much better before. So that's the temporary phase. And then, a few weeks later, once everything is unveiled, all the boards are off, then you get the whole new, the newly developed area. And I think the same way for human connections and just human communications. We've been on this path of connecting, all, for centuries. And then the last few decades, it's a temporary period where we temporarily disconnect. We're just staring at these screens. But now we're getting ready for the more connected period. Would you say? I mean, that's how I see
I think
it.
that's a great analogy. I love that. I am a huge fan of an analogy, and I like it. Like, I think that one thing that the internet has done for humanity, for better or for worse, is communication is ubiquitous now. You're just always in touch with everybody. But I think to your point and to your analogy, and to tell me if I'm wrong here, but don't mean to put words in your mouth, but maybe the quality of that communication has suffered as a result of its
Yes,
ubiquity in some way.
absolutely.
And so there's the opportunity now for us to kind of recover some of that.
Yeah, just like when everything is boarded up, temporarily your shopping experience suffers, and it's a bit of a bother. But then you have to remember that it was a temporary period. So I think the same way, I think we're coming out of the 2D screen era. So I think that's really exciting, and especially with people like you leading the way. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, we're doing it because we love it, right? We're doing it because it's great fun, and we are solving real human problems like with Zapvision, and in the process, I think everybody ends up better off.
Connell, perfect. We're going to end it right there. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking to you, and I really hope we can do it again. There's always more stuff to talk about.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'd love to chat again.